Well, as we continue through our series in the book of Psalms, we are at Psalm 123, and I titled it Contempt. Sounds like a strange title again. This psalm, even though I titled it this, you'll see how that actually fits in. It's a very short psalm. It's only 4 verses, but it's a praise psalm. But this is one of the Psalms of Ascent. Okay, there's kind of a short section starting with Psalm 120 and then going through 123. See, in Psalm 120, we lament our surroundings, kind of looking at where we live in this sinful, fallen world. And in 121, we lift our eyes to the hills. And in 122, we delight in the house of the Lord. I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord. In 123, we look above the hills to the Lord in heaven. So every one of these in this row is actually just raising that whole concept, that mindset, higher and higher. So the ascent factor is about going up to Jerusalem on the original idea, but it also was more than that. It's also looking at lifting us up closer and closer to understanding and seeing Almighty God and who He is. So the goal of the pilgrim is not Jerusalem, as important as that city was, or even the temple in Jerusalem, as important as it was, but God Himself, whose true throne is not anywhere on earth, but in heaven. This is a quote from Boyce. And man is created to stand erect, looking to the heavens for help and comfort. Animals look down to the earth for their health and comfort. So I really never thought of that before. We're created to stand, and our natural is to be able to look up. Animals, their natural state is to look down because they get their help and comfort from the earth itself. That's where their food is, that's where their sleep is. So we are unique, again, in this other way.
Can I ask a question?
Sure you may.
Like in the Bible, they all praised and looked up. How come we started bowing our heads?
That is a good question. But of course, the bowing is an act of submission. Okay, we are submitting to our God. Okay, bowing was you would bow, say, in front of a king, or somebody that was of higher rank. So it was a way of showing respect, but it also was demonstrating submission. So that it both fit. Okay, because we lift our eyes to Jesus, but we bow before the throne of God, right? So they're both, you might say, have symbolisms in what we are doing, why we are doing it, and what it entails, what it teaches us. Okay, but we lift our eyes, and why do we bow our heads? That's the best explanation I can come up with off the top of my head. Right? So take it for what you paid for it. Okay. The prayer of eyes that watch carefully the signs of the hands of the King. Where is He directing us? See, this is something that I don't think we actually think about, but there's the King, which is Almighty God Himself, Jesus the Son. Is our eyes are fixed on Him, we see Him showing us what to do here, showing us where to go there, in the same way that people do this. And not so much in Western society. Eastern society, it's very common for a servant and a master not to speak to each other, but the master would just give a signal, and generally a hand signal of some sort. And that hand signal, the servant had to know what it meant, the difference between this or this, without saying a word. And then the servant would end up doing what the master told them to do simply with this hand signal. Now, that's the idea here, the idea of the eyes watching, carefully and devotedly watching for the signals. We get signals in different ways. We get signals from our God through many. I've gotten signals from God from reading an advertisement sign going down the highway. Okay, but it's being aware that these are there and what they mean. And when God speaks to us, we know what he's saying. Okay, if we want to accept it or deny it, that's different. But we do know when he speaks. Now, it's not like he's giving me directions, you might say like the GPS, okay? But he's giving me directions through a whole host of ways, primarily through his word. His word gives us the directions. But there are other times, other things that happen. So our eyes need to be looking, and our eyes of prayer look beyond the hands of the king to the glory, which we know they are pointing us to. So we're not just looking at the glory of our King. We are looking forward past that to what he's doing for us and what he will do for us. So this is keeping our focus on what he is. As I look in amazement at the glorious expanse of the sky, of expanse of creation, from the stars that fill the night sky. We're going to go through a number of these, okay? And it's to really show us the glory of our God, his greatness, his glory, but then we're going to go past it. Okay, the sun that shines with illuminating colors at the break of day. We've all seen this glorious sunrises, okay? The reds and the yellows of a setting sun. We've also seen those. And we should stand in awe when we see this. The moon that waxes and wanes from the passing nights. And it's just, here again, such an amazing thing of timing and control that our God is controlling all of these movements so that we go from a new moon to a full moon. And we can time it. We know exactly. I mean, you can look at the calendars and find out that, okay, 10 years from now on this date, this is what the moon is going to, because it's so predictable. The trees of the forest, as we look around and we see that glorious forest, and so you can't see the trees for the forest concept. Well, here you see the forest, which is this huge expanse of nature, which is all there because God planted it. Every single one of those trees were planted. The ways of grass over the fields of plenty. And we can even say this, or waves of grain. Travel through Illinois this time of year, and you see non-ending forever cornfields, right? If you enjoy looking at cornfields, this is the time to go on that tour, because hundreds and hundreds of miles of nothing but cornfields. The creatures of the earth, dutifully following their creator's directions. Another amazing thing about God's creation, animals are instilled with certain instincts to do certain things. Even though the fish have schools, they don't go there to learn. They know what to do, okay? And it's amazing. All the different types of animals have something about them that makes them unique, but also follows, we call it instinct. But instinct is something that was implanted by our God. So we see, again, it's not just a big expanse out there. We see it in everything. And we know that God is controlling all of it. So we see his greatness and his glory. But then sometimes we fail to look at it. And here's a little different perspective. You drive down any road around here, and you will see a building of some sort that has been there a long time. You know it has. Maybe it's half fallen down. You stop and think. There was a day, a week, a month, a year, whatever, that there was somebody building that. A person or persons came together and erected that house, that barn, that shed, whatever. What we're seeing is it 100 years later, or maybe more. But there was that one time that was brand new. And somebody was proud of that brand new whatever. They're not looking in the future. And if you've ever built a house, did you look in the future and say, you know, one of these days it's going to fall down? You know, I'm putting forth all this effort to construct this, or I'm paying all this money to have this constructed so that it's going to fall down. We know it's going to, right? But for the time that we need it, the odds are it will be there. And this is another one of the advantages of when you get older. You don't need to have something that lasts so long. You can get by with a cheaper one. You know, well, that one only lasts 20 years. This one will last 100 years. A 20-year one is just fine because I probably won't be here in 20 years. Right? It's a different perspective on how we look at things. But everything that we look at, we know that there was a builder. Just like when we look at all of this nature, we know there was a creator. And this creator obviously is extremely powerful and wise. Has to be, because you can't have all of these things working together unless the creator is. And then we get into verse 1 of this psalm. Mankind is so diverse, I almost forgot that one. But it's created in the image of God. Now, here again, you take a look at mankind, you see we're all different. Okay? There isn't two of us that are exactly the same. And even when it comes down to, you might say, to twins, or like an article that Debbie was reading yesterday about there's 4 identical girls that were born. I never heard that, but identical. I mean, so they all had the same DNA. And
They were all in the same sack.
Yeah.
So they're all the same.
Uh-huh. But I guarantee you every one of them are going to be different. There is going to be a difference in each one. Okay. Appearance-wise, there's going to be a lot of characteristics that are the same, but they will all be different. So we are created in God's image, but it's more a case of not a physical image, but in a way in which our brains operate. Okay? We are created with a desire to worship our God. At the fall, we lost that, and now we fight it. But we still have ingrained in us this thing, and everybody has a conscience. You talk about, you might say, morality, where does it come from? It comes from God. And it was instilled into us when we were created, and that continues on from generation through generation. So we have that instilled in us. Now, people can get so far gone that they actually kill their conscience, and it's no longer there. Yeah, but that's the hardened heart, or their conscience is seared, like the way Paul put it in Romans. But we start off, we are created in the image of God. Now that takes us, you might say, totally above the animals. It takes us to seeing God as greater still, because the animals cannot really appreciate all the things we looked at in creation. We can. I mean, animals basically give me food, give me a place to rest, and I'm happy as can be. That's really all I need. We always want more. Okay? Sometimes we take it too far, but we have this desire to actually accomplish more. And I think it's really good that we have that. Some people, again, sear that whole concept of getting something accomplished. Now, since I retired, I'm still busy, But I also forced myself into a mindset of every day I'm going to accomplish something. Okay? There's going to be some accomplishment made, because I don't want to look back and say, okay, I spent the last week and I accomplished nothing.
Sitting in a chair.
Yeah. I said, that may not happen. And I'm grateful because, of course, now I maybe I'm only accomplishing, 3 or 4 hours of work in a day, because then I spread it out and get my naps in and all these things, okay? That's all fine and good. But at the end of the day, I have to have accomplished something. Okay? And it's kind of instilled in us. We should have that desire to do something, not to just push everything off, not to get to the concept of lazy. Because when we get into the concept of lazy, our worship becomes lazy. The two will go hand in hand.
And created in the image of God, could that be, I was taught this years ago, like with God, he's body, soul, and spirit type.
Yeah, so are we.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, you have the triune God, but the triune aspects of who we are. Okay, body, soul, and spirit. But also, like I said, there's this, the image, like I said, is not physical. Obviously, it's not, because God is spirit. Okay? And we're not created as a spirit. We are created as flesh and blood. But our characteristics, there are characteristics of God that are implanted into us. And even after the fall, they hang on. And like I said, conscience is one of the great ones. But it demonstrates, again, who our God is. So that here again, we get to the beginning of the Psalm, which we haven't even got to yet. Verse 1, to you I lift my eyes, O you who are enthroned in the heavens. I've seen all this greatness of your glory. I've seen everything about you that I can begin to comprehend, and I know it goes way beyond that. But when I lift up my eyes and I look towards the heavens, I look towards your creation, I look towards what you are doing in my life and in the lives of so many. You who are enthroned in heaven. See, we have this glorious picture in the Transfiguration. 6 days later, Jesus took with him Peter and James and John, his brother, and led them up on a high mountain by themselves, and he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his garments became as white as light. And behold, Moses and Elijah appeared to him, talking to him. Peter said to Jesus, Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I will make 3 tabernacles here, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. While he was still speaking, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and behold, a voice out of the cloud said, This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. When the disciples heard this, they fell down on the ground and were terrified. And Jesus came to them and touched them and said, Get up and do not be afraid. And lifting up their eyes, they saw no one except Jesus himself alone. They saw the glory as much as they could. They saw Jesus transformed in front of them. They still didn't quite grasp it, but they were so terrified that they actually had to hide their eyes, because that greatness and glory of how Jesus was displaying just was beyond what they would be able to take. So they hide. And then Jesus actually is teaching us a lesson as he comes over to his disciples and says, come on, let's get up. Let's get up. You're okay. Don't be afraid. And of course, everything's back to normal. Everything was just as it was, except for there is no one here but Jesus alone. We look up into the heavens, and what we're looking for, nothing but Jesus. We're looking for Jesus alone. We see all this greatness and glory and grandeur of creation, and throughout all the things that we see, where do we need to put our focus? On Jesus alone. Because out of Jesus alone is where everything comes. Everything that is of any good and value is coming from our Lord Jesus. Verse 2, behold, the eyes of the servant look to the hand of their master, as the eyes of a maid in the hands of her mistress. So our eyes look to the Lord our God until he is gracious to us. Like I talked about before, in Eastern civilizations, this hand signals mean so much. Okay? So the eyes of the servants to look at the hand of their master, that's what that is pointing towards. That same thing we talked about a little bit ago. But as the eyes of the maid in the hand of the mistress, so the same thing again. Right? Now, so our eyes look to the Lord our God until he is gracious to us. So how do our eyes look to the Lord our God? We talked about the building falling down, old, been there a long time. We look to it, we know for a fact somebody sometime built this. Okay, at one time this was brand new. You know, it was all good. It probably was even straight then. Okay, now it's kind of leaning and falling. Okay, so our eyes look to the Lord our God, who is Jesus. Jesus is our Lord. He is our God. Okay, until he is gracious to us. Well, if we look and fix our eyes on him, we fix on his greatness, his glory, but also what he has done for us from the cross. And we see this glorious thing of the resurrection, knowing that he has provided us a way to the Father because of what he has done. We just need to accept that reality. We know it's there, we know it's true, and then we see his grace. We see him being gracious to us because we fixed our eyes on him and on nothing else. We were not thinking, well, if I give my life to Christ, and I do this good work, and I do this sort of thing, and I'm nice to the neighbors, and, there is no Jesus and. There is Jesus alone. The and come as a response of gratitude, not to earn salvation, not to earn favor. God calls us, just says, just trust me. Just trust me. The truly sanctified man looks to God's hands with obedience as well as with reverence. And it kind of brings out, you talked about why do we bow our heads instead of lifting our eyes. We can do both, okay? But we're looking to God's hands. And here, I think the concept of looking to God's hands, we look to his word. Because his word is giving us all the instructions we need. And we do it with obedience. Okay, I know the right thing to do. I know what God requires of me. I know what he's asked of me. And I don't feel like it, so I will just ignore you. That's not a wise choice. Let me assure you of that. And it's not because he's standing there just waiting for you to mess up. He's standing there lovingly calling you to be great, and he'll be gracious to us. If we do it in reverence, our God should be revered, and we should demonstrate reverence for him. And reverence for him means that we don't use the Lord's name in vain. We don't throw it out. We don't deny him when the crowd around us is, you may say, not believers, and you're going to become the focus of ridicule. That's where the contempt starts coming in. Because people in this world will hold us in contempt. And to be held in contempt by the world is something that we are wanting. We'll get to that in a minute. Verse 3a. Be gracious to us, O Lord. Be gracious to us. Now, we know we have all these trials and things in our lives. We know that living in this fallen world does create problems, does create difficulties. But God is gracious to us. He watches over us. He guides us. He gives us all that we need. He gives us everything we need, and so far beyond that. He is gracious to us. Let's recognize it. Let's recognize his grace. Because I am filled with a contempt for failures of others. They don't just live up to the standards I have laid on myself. I now see them as weak, unproductive followers of Christ. Here's when we fall into the trap. We fall into the trap of, I'm a mature Christian and I do and don't do this series of things. I know it's out of gratitude and I know it's out of respect for my God, and I know that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is how I'm supposed to be living. But, there's these other Christians, they claim to be Christians, and they just simply don't live up to these standards. And, there's something wrong with them. Come on, can't you see it? Why do you skip so many church services? Why do you not do this? Why do you not do that? Why do you make these decisions that in reality aren't very wise? And we know that the wise things to do in this situation is, but we don't do it. And we see this in people. And we start to begin to think like, I'm a better Christian than you are. And we start getting this mindset. And this goes back, and I think I've told you this before, so that's all right. It's been long enough you forgot. This is something that I learned from my daddy. As I asked him a question one day, and I said, when do you consider your child is grown up? And that was his answer, never. He says, remember, I've always got 20-some years on you. So we have to remember that reality when we are dealing with other people. Our expectations are not that they live up to my standards. My expectation is that they grow in their faith and knowledge of their master, who is the same master as mine. But it's a growth process. And it doesn't make them less of a Christian. In the same way, it doesn't make a high school graduate less of a human being than a college graduate. They're both equal as far as being a human being. One has had more training, or somebody that has worked in a certain field for many years, that it's the training, is what they've learned. When we look at people that way, we no longer are looking for expectations of ours. We're grateful that they're growing. So we don't try to instill our morals on them, our way of thinking on them. No, what we're doing is we're just grateful that you're part of the family, and if there's anything I can do to help you, I want to, but it has nothing whatsoever to do with how far you have grown at this point. All of us need to grow. Every one of us. That doesn't stop, not in this lifetime.
It's funny. You should say that, because this morning I was just thinking from when I started and now, but then I looked ahead and thought, I've really just...
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's grasping that reality of the growth is, there's no limit to it. Okay? So, if I have moved this far, I've grown. Okay? If I've moved this far, I've grown. My concern is not with if it's this far or this far. My concern is that the growth is taking place. That's what I'm looking at. And I'm only looking at that for me. How am I growing? Not how are you growing? Are my children living up to the expectations that I have for them? Well, probably not, which is fine. It's okay. They don't need to. They're not you. But are they growing? Yes. Wonderful. Enjoy that. Are they not? Pray that they will. You won't change them. Only God will.
And you want to grow and not regress.
Right. That old concept of backsliding. All right? And the reality of it is, just like the church is, you might say, known for having all these hypocrites, it's also full of backsliders. But it's ones that know it, that grow, and do something about it. Verse 3b, for we are greatly filled with contempt. See all that contempt we can have? And we have all that contempt not for the world where it should be, and not the world for us, which it will be. But we have this contempt for other believers because they're not living up to our standards. And this is what we have to get rid of. We have to get rid of that type of contempt. We don't condemn people. St. Augustine prayed, "O Lord, deliver me from this lust of always vindicating myself." Now, that is interesting. See, because, he was quite a great theologian. And whenever he would hear somebody say something that he didn't agree with, or if somebody disagreed with him, his instant natural reaction was, I'm going to prove my point. I am right, you are wrong. And he's asking God to take that away, where I've got to always take on the debate. I've always got to win the debate, that my side is always right. We can do the same thing, that we know better. I know better than you do. Maybe you do. Maybe you don't. Maybe you understand part of the problem. Maybe you understand none of the problem. But our desire, again, isn't to be the one that is constantly in the line of I am right, you are wrong. Such a need for content vindication destroys our soul's faith in God. Don't say I must explain myself or I must get people to understand. I have a battle with that one. I love to be able to, you might say, prove you wrong. Right? So I'm guilty of that, and this one kind of really pointed that out. You got to be careful there, okay? But then an interesting thing that I did not really realize until I started thinking about it, our Lord never explained anything to speak of. What did he do? He left misunderstandings and misconceptions of others to correct themselves. See, Jesus never tried to, when they said, you are a demon, or you're filled with demons, you're doing miracles by demons. He didn't try to, really vindicate himself. It was more a case of he kind of let it be. And he let it be to the point to where people would start seeing, that can't be. He didn't say, a demon casting out demons doesn't make any sense. You're illogical in your thinking. But he didn't try to really prove himself right and them wrong. He just let it be. And they learned as time went on. Now, the old saying, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. You've heard that line before? You force somebody to change their opinion. If you force them to do it, their opinion hasn't changed. It really hasn't. You might think it did. They're going to say that it did, and they're just doing that so you'll close your mouth and stop talking to them. Okay? But their opinion hasn't changed. So trying to force people to change opinions doesn't work. It never has and never will. We live in a land of civil and religious freedom, and they cannot go beyond the boundaries of misrepresentation and scorn. They may show their teeth and growl, but they cannot bite. They may curse you, but they cannot lay a finger upon you. That's from McMichael. And it's true. We still look at our government and a lot of the terrible things that they're doing and trying to do. But in reality, nobody was stopped from coming here this morning. Nobody was hindered in their worship. Nobody was told that you can't do this, you can't do that in order to share your faith of your God, of our God. We live in a land where we have tremendous freedoms. And we should take advantage of those freedoms. And we should do what we can to preserve those freedoms. But to think what we'd like to live like the one praise we had this morning, where this girl is living with her cousin who's a Christian in the Middle East, and then her family finds out about it, goes to the police, has her arrested. Arrested for what? For becoming a Christian. Taken back home, put it back into her father's house, and literally beaten. They're trying to beat the Christianity out of her. See, we can't fathom that type of life. Finally, by God's grace, she was able to return back to her cousin. But that was God that did that. We can't fathom what it would be like to suddenly be arrested for being a Christian and then put someplace where they try to beat you until you renounce him. We can't fathom that. We don't have that. We have the opposite. If the police came in here and arrested us for being a Christian, whatever policeman did that would end up getting arrested. There's a difference. There's a huge difference. So we have to really be grateful for what we have, which also means we have to acknowledge it and take advantage of it. And then Oswald Chambers said, when we discern that other people are not growing spiritually and allow that discernment to turn to criticism, we block our fellowship with God. God never gives us the discernment so that we may criticize, but that we may intercede. Another wise saying, okay, and Oswald Chambers was a wise man. See, we don't have discernment to criticize. That wasn't the purpose of it. If God gives me clear understanding of something, it doesn't mean I can use that to beat on somebody else. That's not the purpose of it. Because what does that do? It does block their fellowship. That's the first three verses. We've made it through three of them now. We got one more to go. Now the psalmist turns to the world's contempt of God's people, the mocking, the ridicule of those that do follow God's way, that stand on his truth. We see a worldly live successful lives and no cares or concerns for tomorrow. They have a nice house, they got money in the bank, they drive a new car. All these things the world has to offer, while God's people seem to have less of these things. Now, individually, that's not so. Corporately, it is. It is very common for people of the world to end up becoming far more wealthy than the children of God, as far as worldly things are concerned. But that's not wealth. That's fake wealth.
My father owns a cattle on 1,000 fields, so he lets me enjoy them.
Yeah. But to see things, here again, the different perspectives, the worldly perspective. People have all these things, and here another real life story. A customer of mine a number of years ago had a business and was very successful. I mean, not $1 billion successful, but multiple millions of dollars successful. And he was getting ready to retire because he was getting well up in age. And we were talking one day, and he said, I guess I really don't know what I'm going to do. Says, my wife and kids left me a long time ago because I was too busy growing the business. I have no actual religion. I have no desire to do anything in the community or volunteering for anything. This is basically, I have nothing. How sad. You know, he knew I was a Christian. We talked a little bit, but to him that just wasn't possible anymore. He's passed that opportunity along many, many years before. So here's this rich man that has nothing, and he realizes it. What a sad scenario. Reminds me of another man. He worked in a factory that we were cleaning out because the factory had closed down. I said, well, how long you been here? 34 years. Well, that's pretty long to stay in one place. How did you like it? He says, I hated it every day. Every day I came here, I hated it. Well, why did you stay? Well, the money was good. You spent a good portion of your life every day going to a job that you hate. Don't you have, this is your life? Your life is just filled with hatred of what you have to do. And you do that over and over again. See, to go through life without lifting our eyes to see past the glories of the things that we can see and looking at the glory of our God, where there is true satisfaction, true fulfillment, a true desire to serve, to worship, and to just adore. That fills our life with something. And then that is only the beginning, because we have this short little time here on earth before we go into a non-ending, everlasting life that is so much greater than what we have here, we can't even begin to imagine. So our soul is greatly filled with the scoffing of those who are at ease and with the contempt of the proud. The world looks at us and says, yeah, well, you Christians, yeah, you miss out on so much. Here's what a humiliation it should be to receive the praise of this world. If this world praises you, you should be humbled, humiliated, I should say. You don't ever want the world to think you are one of them. We're always to be stand up as different. Used that for many years. I myself and my family are not normal, nor do we ever desire to be.